I thought I was the only one with secrets, until I walked into our bedroom one night. That's when I understood what I had started. If you'd walked into my bedroom 3 months ago, you'd have seen my whole life folded into that room. Wedding photos on the dresser, her favorite blanket at the foot of the bed, my watch on the nightstand. If you'd walked in 1 hour later, you'd have seen my wife with another man. And if you'd been there a month before that, you'd have seen me in my office, closing the blinds, betraying her first. People like to talk about villains and victims like it's neat and simple. I wish I could tell you I was just the guy who got broken, not the one who cracked things himself. But the truth is messier. The truth is, I helped set the fire and then stood there shocked when the house burned down. Her name is Emily. We'd been married 11 years. We had a little blue house in the suburbs, a golden retriever that shed all over the couch, and a neighbor who mowed his lawn at 6 in the morning like it was a mission from heaven. We used to laugh at that, lying in bed, whispering about how we'd move someday by land, get away from the noise. Our life wasn't fancy, but it was ours. Saturday pancakes, Netflix fights over what to watch, her falling asleep with a book open on her chest. I used to lie there and just watch her breathe. I really did love her. That's the part one keeps circling back to. I loved her, and I still did what I did. I work at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. Middle management. Just important enough to be stressed, not important enough to be rich. My secretary assistant technically was Hannah. Mid-20s, sharp as a tack, the kind of person who could juggle 3 phone calls and still remind me I was late for a meeting. The cracks started small. They always do. Late nights at the office. Emily and I passing each other like we were roommates with separate schedules. Her phone lighting up with messages from coworkers. Me answering emails at the dinner table. Little sighs. Little silences. Hannah noticed before Emily did. "You okay?" she asked one night when everyone else had gone home. The office was dark except for the light over my desk. I remember the hum of the air conditioning, the way it suddenly felt too loud. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She didn't believe me. "You look like a guy who's losing something and pretending he's not." I laughed it off, but the words stuck. It didn't happen all at once. It was shared takeout, long talks, jokes about clients. It was harmless until it wasn't. One night, I made a joke about how I practically lived at the office. She said soft, "Well, at least you're not alone." And then I kissed her. That was the moment the floor gave way, even if it took me a while to feel the drop. The second after I kissed Hannah, the world didn't explode. That almost made it worse. There was no thunder, no lightning strike, no picture of Emily falling off my desk in some kind of cosmic protest. There was just the soft buzz of the overhead light and the sound of my own heart suddenly hammering in my ears. "I shouldn't have done that," I said. Hannah looked at me for a long moment. "Yeah," she whispered. "You probably shouldn't have." But she didn't move away. I wish I could tell you I pulled back, apologized, drew a line and went home to my wife with some kind of lesson learned. That's not what happened. We just stayed there, too close, talking quietly, pretending we could stand right on the edge of that line and not cross it. The next day at work, everything felt tilted. Her good morning sounded different. My coffee tasted wrong. Every email I answered felt like it had someone else's fingerprints on it. At home, Emily stirred pasta on the stove and told me about her day. I nodded at the right moments, said wow when it sounded like something deserved a wow. But my mind kept replaying that kiss like a replay I couldn't turn off. "You okay?" she asked, looking up at me. "You're quiet." "Long day," I said. It was becoming my excuse for everything. The thing is, our marriage wasn't in flames yet. It was just duller, faded. We still watched shows together, still went to my parents' house for Sunday dinner, still made plans for someday. But the color had drained out. I didn't tell her that I felt invisible. She didn't tell me, then, how lonely she felt sitting across from a man who was physically there and mentally somewhere else. A week later, I stayed late again. Of course I did. I told Emily I had a campaign deadline. She said, "Okay, don't work too hard." And I heard something tired in her voice that I ignored. Hannah and I were the last ones in the office. It's glitch, I know. Empty hallway, dark windows, the city outside doing its own thing. We tried to talk about work, but every sentence bent back toward that moment we'd already shared. "This is a bad idea," I said. "Yeah," she answered. "It is." We both knew we weren't talking about staying late. I don't need to spell out what happened next. I crossed a line you can't uncross. It wasn't a mistake in the sense of tripping over a curb, it was a choice. I chose it, fully aware of the ring on my finger and the woman waiting at home. Driving back that night, the streetlights streaked across my windshield like someone dragging a highlighter over my guilt. When I walked into the house, the TV was on low. Emily was on the couch, wrapped in that old blanket, half asleep. "Hey," she murmured, blinking at me. "You just get in?" "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I just got in." She smiled, small and tired, and patted the couch next to her. I sat down. She rested her head on my shoulder like she'd done 1,000 times before. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt like an intruder in my own home. After that night, my life split clean down the middle. There was home me and office me, and they almost never looked each other in the eye. At home, I was the husband who forgot to take out the trash, who kissed his wife on the cheek, who scrolled through his phone while she talked about repainting the kitchen. At work, I was the guy who knew exactly how far to close the blinds. You'd think the guilt would have stopped me. Didn't. It just turned into a background noise I learned to live with, like the highway hum behind our house. Annoying at first, then barely noticeable. I started justifying it in my head. "Emily's busy. We've grown apart. This won't hurt anyone if no one finds out." Classic lines. You don't realize how easy it is to lie to yourself until you really need to. But something shifted with her, too. It was small things at first. Emily started going to the gym more. New leggings, new shoes, new water bottle that she kept losing and then somehow finding again. She bought a nicer perfume and started wearing it on random Tuesdays. Not just for date nights. "New scent?" I asked once, catching a trace of it as she passed. "Yeah," she said, smiling quickly. "Molly at work had it. I liked it." She brushed it off, but she was different. Her phone, once tossed on the coffee table, started living face down. She had late meetings and drinks with the team. I wanted to ask questions, but every time I opened my mouth, something in my chest reminded me I had no moral high ground to stand on. One Thursday, she came home later than usual. The dog paced between the door and me like he knew something was off. When she finally walked in, cheeks flushed from the cold night air, she looked almost startled to see me still awake. "Hey," she said, hanging up her coat. "You didn't have to wait up." "I couldn't sleep," I answered. "How was it?" "Good. Long." She moved into the kitchen, grabbed a glass, filled it with water. Her hands shook just a little. "We were going over the quarterly stuff again. You know how it is." I didn't. Emily worked in HR. I wasn't sure what quarterly stuff meant for HR, but I nodded anyway. "Hannah texted me that same night. Did you get home okay?" I stared at that message while my wife rinsed her glass in the sink like everything inside our house was normal. 2 women, 2 lies, 1 phone in my hand. "Who's that?" Emily asked casually, drying her hands. "Work," I said automatically. "Just someone from work." She accepted it. I accepted her story, too. We both chose the easy road, the one paved with things we didn't ask. Looking back, that's when the betrayal really started. Not in hotel rooms or offices. In those quiet, shared silences where we both pretended not to see what was right in front of us. You always think you'll know when your marriage is in trouble. You picture big scenes. Shouting, slammed doors, somebody throwing a ring on the table and saying they're done. But for us, it was quieter. Crept in through little things, like a draft under a door you forgot to close. I stopped kissing Emily for no reason. Not on purpose, not as some grand decision. It just faded. A peck on the cheek here, a quick hug there, but none of those long, slow embraces where time used to stretch out. She stopped reaching for my hand in the car. We started watching TV with a throw pillow between us like a neutral zone. One night, I walked into our bedroom and saw her standing in front of the mirror, fixing her hair. She was in jeans and a simple top, nothing dramatic, but Shed done her makeup more carefully than usual. She looked good. Too good for girls' night, which is what Shed called it. You going out? I asked. Yeah. With the team from work, she said, eyes meeting mine in the mirror. I told you. You said you might, I answered. Didn't know it was a sure thing. She shrugged, grabbed her purse. Well, it is. There was a beat where I could have said something. I could have asked who was going, where they were meeting, when Shed be back. Instead, I just nodded. Have fun, I said. She paused in the doorway. You trust me, right? That question hit harder than it should have. It felt like someone had turned on a spotlight in the middle of a dark stage. I swallowed. Yeah, I said. Of course. The lie sat between us, thick as smoke. After she left, the house felt too big. I wandered from room to room, flipping lights on and off, picking things up just to put them back down. The dog stared at me from the hallway like he expected me to fix something I didn't know how to fix. My phone buzzed. It was Hannah. You around? For a second, I actually considered inviting her over. That's the kind of person I had become. A man so tangled in his own selfishness that he thought the solution to feeling distant from his wife was to get closer to the woman he was already betraying her with. But something inside me finally pushed back. Can't tonight, I typed. Need to be home. I dropped my phone on the table and just stood there in the kitchen under the dim light, listening to the clock tick. The silence felt loud. I thought about the man I used to be when Emily and I first got married. The guy who drove across town just to bring her lunch on her break. The guy who wrote her little notes and left them in her car. Where did he go? Emily came home a little after midnight. I heard the car door, the soft jingle of her keys. I stayed on the couch, pretending to be half asleep, as if that would somehow protect me from whatever truth might be written on her face. She walked in, surprised to see the TV still flickering. Hey, she said quietly. You're up. Yeah, I mumbled. Lost track of time. She smelled different. Not just like her new perfume, there was something else. A trace of cologne that wasn't mine. Faint but there. My stomach tightened. How was it? I asked. It was good, she said, dropping her purse a little too carefully by the door. Just talking, work stuff. She wouldn't quite look at me. I watched her disappear down the hall to our bedroom, and for the first time since my own affair started, a thought I'd been dodging finally landed and stayed. What if I'm not the only one? I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing beside me. I'd broken something sacred and tried to keep walking like it was no big deal. But now, for the first time, I felt the ground starting to crack under both of us. And I had no idea that the proof I was afraid of was already waiting for me. Not in some hotel, not in her office, but in the one place I still thought of as ours. Our own bedroom. The night I walked in on Emily with him didn't start like some big dramatic turning point. It was just a Tuesday. I was supposed to be out late with a client dinner. At the last minute, the client canceled. Everyone else decided to still go out for drinks, and for a second I almost went with them. Then I thought about the dog, the empty house, the way Emily and I had been circling each other like strangers, and I decided to do something unusual. I went home early. The sky was already dark when I pulled into our street. Our bedroom light was on. That didn't mean anything by itself. What caught my eye was the car parked a little crooked in front of our house. I recognized it, not from our driveway, but from a few quick waves and nods when ID picked Emily up near her office. His name was Mark. ID heard it a few times. Guy from finance. That's all he had been in my head. My first thought wasn't, she's cheating. It was more like a noise, just static in my brain. My hands felt weirdly numb on the steering wheel. I got out of the car. The house looked exactly the same as it always did. Same porch light, same wreath on the door Emily kept meaning to replace after Christmas and never did. I walked up the steps, key in my hand, every step heavier than it should have been. The door was unlocked. Inside, the hallway was quiet. The TV was off. No shoes by the door except hers. I could hear something faint down the hall, muffled voices. A low laugh that definitely wasn't mine. You know that feeling when you're in a dream and you're trying to run, but your legs move like they're underwater? That's what it felt like walking toward the bedroom. The door was half closed. I pushed it open. There they were. In my bed. Our bed. Sheets twisted. Both of them startled. Faces going pale when they saw me. It wasn't like in the movies, no dramatic screaming right away, no smashing things. Just this frozen, ugly stillness. For a second, nobody moved. Time stretched. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Jake." I didn't look at him long. Just enough to notice he was wearing one of those smug button-downs I'd seen in the office parking lot. Then my eyes went back to her. Her hair was messed up, her cheeks flushed, our headboard behind her like some kind of cruel joke. My voice didn't sound like mine when it finally came out. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." He scrambled, grabbing for his clothes, stammering something that might have been an apology. I stepped back, pointed toward the door. "Get out," I said quietly. He tried to say my name. I didn't let him finish. He left. Fast. A minute later, I heard the front door slam and his car pull away. Then it was just me and Emily and the wreckage of 11 years hanging in the air. She started crying. Not the soft, pretty kind. The messy, panicked kind. Like she was trying to apologize and breathe and explain all at once. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you'd be home. We were just..." I laughed once. This short, harsh sound that hurt my own ears. "You didn't know I'd be home," I repeated. "That's the part you're leading with?" She flinched like I'd hit her. "I didn't mean it like that. I don't know what to say." There were 1,000 things I wanted to yell. I wanted to ask her how long, where they met, if he knew about me, if she ever thought about our wedding photos on the dresser while she was pulling him into our bed. Instead, what came out was the one truth I'd been avoiding. "I cheated on you first." Her sobbing stopped like someone had flipped a switch. She stared at me, eyes red, mouth slightly open. "What?" she whispered. "With Hannah," I said. "At work. It's been a while." The room went quiet in a new way. Her betrayal, my betrayal. They just sat there together like two strangers who suddenly realized they'd been living in the same house. "So we're both liars," she said finally, voice flat. "Yeah," I answered. "Looks like it. We didn't fix it that night." There was no big embrace, no dramatic breakup speech. I slept in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, wondering how two people who once promised each other forever ended up here. Burned out, hollow, both guilty. In the weeks that followed, we tried. Counseling. Long talks that went nowhere. Tears. Blame. Silence. Some days I hated her. Some days I hated myself more. Most days it was both. We're separated now. Papers filed, rings off. The house with the blue siding and the noisy neighbor is just a place I drive past sometimes when I take the long way home from work. Erase what I've learned, or at least what I tell myself when I can't sleep. Betrayal doesn't start when someone climbs into bed with a stranger. It starts way before that, in the unchecked distance, in the half-truths, in the decisions you make when you think no one will ever know. I wish I could end this by saying I was the victim or that she was the villain. But the truth is, we both broke the vows we wrote with our whole hearts when we were younger and braver and better than the people we turned into. If there's any moral in this mess, it's this. The moment you start hiding from the person you love, you're not just lying to them. You're slowly erasing yourself, too. And one day, you might walk into your own bedroom and realize you don't recognize anyone in it. Least of all the man standing in the doorway.